and a very warm welcome to all our distinguished fraternity members and guests. Today we have gathered together to celebrate the World Maritime Day with the theme Sustainable Shipping for Sustainable Planet. I, Captain Rajesh Nambiar, is proud to be your MOC for the evening, and joining me from behind the scenes, the controller and my dear friend, Sri Ajay Pillai, Chief Engineer and Treasurer, Mariners Society. The program is also being live streamed by Sailor Today on their YouTube channel, sailortoday.in, and various other media facilities have also joined with us, like Saga Sandesh and CN Job. With the restrictions imposed by the pandemic on physical gatherings, we seafarers have adapted, as we always have in the face of adversity, to the virtual platform. The vast number of guests we have and the continuous numbers trickling in is testimony to the fact that where there is a seafarer, there is a way. Perhaps it is a very deliberate and contemporary choice the International Maritime Organization has made by declaring the theme for this year as Sustainable Shipping for a Sustainable Planet. This provides an excellent opportunity to raise awareness of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and to showcase the work that the International Maritime Organization and its member states are undertaking to achieve the targets. I now request Dr. Shaneth Simon to kindly proceed with the prayer.
Okay, Shan Simon, I requested to unmute.
Sangachatvam samvadatvam sambho manamsi janatam deva bhagam yadha puri sanjanana upasati samaniva agoti samana hridayaniva samanamastu omano yadava asati. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the beautiful rendition and setting a serene atmosphere to the proceedings. It is now my proud privilege and honor to request the President of the Mariners Society, Professor Dr. K. S. Simon, to deliver the welcome address. Professor Simon graduated in Mechanical Engineering from Kerala University. He worked for the Shipping Corporation of India Limited for 12 years, sailing all over the high seas on board various types of ships, including passenger ships, of which 5 years as Chief Engineer. He has also stood by supervising construction of SCI ships at Warnemund Shipyard in Germany, Sunderland Shipyard in UK, and finally Dannebrog Shipyard in Denmark for construction of passenger ship MV Bharat Seema. Subsequently, he joined Mercantile Marine Department under Directorate General of Shipping, Government of India as Engineer Surveyor and Shipping Master, and worked in MMD offices at Cochin, Tuticorin, Chennai, Mumbai, and Port Blair. In the meantime, he acquired the extra first class Marine Engineer Certificate of Competency and Steam Endorsement, also qualified with an MBA degree. He then did 2 years postgraduate degree in Maritime Safety Administration at World Maritime University, Sweden, and also acquired doctorate in Marine Engineering Training. He took voluntary retirement as Deputy Chief Surveyor with the Government of India after 17 years of service with the central government and forayed into maritime training since the year 2000. He has worked as director of Kunyali Marikar School of Marine Engineering, Cochin University of Science and Technology for a period of 12 years. He is a fellow of Institution of Engineers, fellow of Institute of Marine Engineers India, and fellow of Indian Council of Arbitrators. He has been All India President of Institute of Marine Engineers for a term of 2 years from 2003 to 2005. He is also Director Incumbent of the Alberts Institute, Kochi. He has been awarded for outstanding contribution to maritime training by Ministry of Shipping, Government of India in the year 2016. He is a living legend in our fraternity and a source of inspiration to countless fellow seafarers. Over to you, sir.
Good evening.
So you have to unmute. Simon sir, please unmute.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening and greetings of World Maritime Day to one and all. Am I audible? Once again checking.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Respected Sri Arun Sharma, Executive Chairman of Indian Register of Shipping, respected Captain Sreedharan, former Chief Nautical Surveyor to Government of Myanmar, Engineer NMC Nair, former Chairman of IMEI Cochin, other speakers, Captain Roney Kurivila, CMMI Kochi, Mr. Sandith, Thandasherry, CEO of Navalt, Captain S T Sreedharan, President Mariners Club Thrissur, Captain K Haridas, past President Merchant Navy Club Calicut, Sri Ajay Shivashankar Pillai, Treasurer of Mariners Society and the backbone of this event, Captain Dilip Panangadan, Secretary of Mariners Society, Captain Rajesh Nambiar, Pilot, Cochin Port Trust, Secretary CMMI Cochin, and our Master of Ceremonies, esteemed committee members of Mariners Society, members of Mariners Society, members of Institute of Marine Engineers India, members of Company of Master Mariners of India, members of Nautical Institute, members of MOCC, officials of Sailor Today magazine, including Captain Nangia and his team, Sagar Sandesh representatives of CN Job as well as Marex Bulletin, members of Seafarers Widows Association Cochin, fellow seafarers, ladies and gentlemen. It is my proud pleasure to welcome you all. You all may know that there are 3 important festive days in a year for Indian seafarers and Indian shipping in general. The National Maritime Day on 5th of April, the International Seafarers Day on the 25th of June, and the World Maritime Day, which falls during the last week of September. Today being the last Thursday of the last week of September, we observe and celebrate 24th September as World Maritime Day this year. We all know that continents of this planet Earth are separated by oceans geographically. But interestingly, ships and seafarers connect them in order to sustain mutual interdependency of various countries. This in itself, inter alia, goes to justify the theme of IMO's World Maritime Day, namely sustainable shipping for a sustainable planet. Ships and seafarers serve all the countries of this planet. As IMO's former Secretary General once stated, I quote, "But for shipping, half the world will starve and the other half will freeze," unquote. Shipping touches everyone's life on this planet, one way or the other, knowingly or unknowingly. IMO has concrete and time-bound plans to control pollution from shipping and thereby make shipping and this planet sustainable. Reduction of greenhouse gas emission from ships to 50% by the year 2050 is one such bold step. I don't intend dwelling on the topic as we have eminent and illustrious speakers with us today to talk on this subject. We have with us Captain Sreedharan as our chief guest of the day. Captain Sreedharan, after 2 years pre-sea training with Burma Naval Training School, sailed with Burma 5-star line in 1965. Subsequently, he rose to the level of master foreign going. After gaining experience as master, he joined Department of Marine Administration as nautical surveyor and finally rose to the level of chief nautical surveyor of Government of Burma. He did his MS in Maritime Safety Administration from the world-renowned World Maritime University, Malmö, Sweden, in the year 1989. Worked as senior lecturer in Malaysia's Maritime Academy for 3 years, and thereafter with Lloyd's Register of Shipping at Singapore as surveyor for 9 years. Presently, he is a freelance consultant in surveying and maritime training. More than anything else, Captain Sreedharan was my friend, philosopher, and guide all through the 2 years of our lives together at World Maritime University, Malmö, Sweden. After leaving Sweden, we stayed in touch continuously, communicating latest developments in IMO in particular and shipping in general. I welcome him to this celebration on behalf of all participants and the Mariner Society. Mr. Arun Sharmaji, Executive Chairman, Indian Register of Shipping, has worked for the Shipping Corporation of India and Great Eastern Shipping in areas of operation, chartering, marketing, technical, and so on. He was chairman of IACS, that is International Association of Classification Societies, since July 2019 for a term of 1 year. It is a matter of great pride for all of us and personally to me that IRS could chair IACS, all the more so when we know that IRS was at one time sidelined or denied membership by IACS. I vividly remember an instance in the 1980s when, after I gave a presentation on IRS in a technical forum in Europe, I was asked by one of the participants as to why I promote IRS when there are already 8 reputed classification societies in existence. Congratulations to our stalwarts for having brought IRS to this level. As chairman of IAX, Mr. Arun Sharma made sure that shipping industry concerns and aspirations are taken into consideration in the IAX work program. He worked closely with other members of IAX in establishing data-driven policy, cybersecurity, strengthening IAX internal quality system, and formation of expert group on Mars. It is of great interest to all of us that US Coast Guard has delegated authority to IRS class to undertake statutory survey and certification services of US flagships on behalf of that administration. When I approached Sri Arun Sharma to deliver the keynote address for World Maritime Day celebration, he promptly agreed. On behalf of all present here and other participants and Mariner Society and my own personal behalf, I wholeheartedly welcome him today to this function. My sincere and personal welcome to our speakers of the day, Engineer NMC Nair, former chairman of IMEI Cochin, Captain Roney Kurivila, CMMI Cochin, Sri Sandith Thandasherry, CEO of Navalt, Capt S T Sreedharan, President Mariners Club Thrissur, and Captain KK Haridas, past President Mercenary Club Calicut. Their further introduction will be rendered as we proceed. I welcome all the committee members of Mariner Society, without whose teamwork this event would not have been a reality. My welcome to all members of Mariner Society, comprising of members of CMMI, IMEI, Nautical Institute, MOCC, and Seafarers Widows Association, and its president, Mrs. Meena Robert. Special welcome to the representatives of Sailor Today and other magazines. Although welcomed and covered as members of committee members of Mariner Society, I would like to welcome by name Sri Ajay Sivasankar Pillai, Captain Rajesh Nambiar, and Captain Dilip Tarangadan for their untiring efforts for the last several weeks for the success of this function. Finally, and not the least, I welcome all fellow seafarers and their family members to the celebration of World Maritime Day. Wish you all a fruitful and illuminating time of meeting. Thank you all. Over to Rajesh.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. I now invite Sri NMC Nair, former president of the Institute of Marine Engineers and a very active senior member of the Mariner Society, to introduce the theme. Over to you, sir.
Good evening. Good evening to all. Wishing the key workers of the sea and our special guests of Marine World a happy World Maritime Day. This year's theme selected by International Maritime Organization is Sustainable Shipping for a Sustainable Planet, which is in line with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. Let us see what is it and what we should do. Share the screen. Share the screen, yeah. Share the screen.
Start sharing the screen, sir.
IMO theme for the year Sustainable Shipping for a Sustainable Planet by NMC Nair. United Nations adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 169 related targets in September 2015. And 193 countries adopted the agenda called a Plan of Action for the People, the Planet, and for the Prosperity. Agenda explains the need for consider simultaneously the three pillars of sustainable development: social, economic, and environmental. IMO being a specialist agency of UN, which aims to promote safe and secured shipping, sustainable shipping through the adoption of the highest practicable standards of maritime safety and security, efficiency of navigation, and prevention and control of pollution from sea. IMO adopted the theme on sustainable shipping for a sustainable planet for the 2020 World Maritime Day, which is today, 24th September. Sustainability means meeting the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And number 14 of the SDG is life below water, which is to conserve the use of oceans, seas, and marine resources for a sustainable development. These are the 17 goals. 1, to zero hunger. 3, good health and well-being. 4, quality education. 5, gender equality. 6, can read it, clean water and sanitation. Affordable and clean energy. Decent work and economic growth. Industry, innovation and infrastructure. Reduced inequalities. Sustainable cities and communities. Responsible consumption and production. Climate action, and life below water, which is 14. Then life on land, 15. Peace, justice, and strong innovations. Last one is partnership for goals. See I'm just showing some snaps because of the pollution, what all things happen. See, this whale was washed ashore with 220 pounds of bundle of rope, plastic cups, bags, gloves, packing straps, and tubings. This is the effect of oil spill on the shore. And this one came in the Marine Engineers Review September issue, decarbonizing the ships, the effects of this thing is shipping greenhouse gas emission have increased. CO2 intensities have decreased in shipping, but the rate of decrease slowed down. CH4 emission have increased manifold due to dual fuel contribution. SOx and NOx have increased. This is for the period from 2012 to 2018. This is a condition of beaches. This was the condition, you can say. Now, this is Fort Cochin Beach on 14th September 2020. You can see the debris coming ashore from the sea. Let us try our best to preserve the oceans, seas, and waterways and be proud to be a mariner. Thank you. It's clear?
Yes. Rajesh, I have unmuted you.
Thank you very much, sir. Before I proceed further, it's a really proud privilege to see that some really senior dignitaries and fraternity members have joined our meeting. It's really an honor to welcome Sri Sabyasachi Hazara sir, former CMD of SCI. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. I also have with us Captain C. Chandramouli Srivastava sir. He is the ex-senior vice president of SCI. Thank you very much for taking time out and gracing our meeting. Captain Philip Matthews, sir, former SVP SCI and former Master of Company of Mastermind of India. Thank you very much for joining us. Next, I request Sri Arun Sharma ji, Chairman IAX, to kindly proceed with the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you and good evening to all. Dr. Simon, thank you very much for this personal invitation today evening. Distinguished panelists, participants, members of the media, seafarers, whether at sea or holidaying on land, I think my best wishes to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for a very, very happy World Maritime Day. We all know that today is a day dedicated to various issues at sea, whether be it the safety at sea, the protection of the environment, and more importantly, dedicated to the seafarers who are doing a phenomenal job, so that we could probably, lead some comfortable lives ashore. Having been at sea, we quite appreciate the efforts which are made by the seafarer in keeping the supply lines going. In fact, I think there is no amount of gratitude that we could express to our seafarers for what they are doing and they have been doing. Sustainable shipping, I think, is a very apt topic for having been chosen as today's theme. And, the thoughts go back to a very old adage that the planet has more than enough for all our needs, and yet it definitely does not have enough for the kind of greed the human beings have been expressing in the last couple of years. At any point of time, I think the overall development pertaining to a country globally, we all know, must keep in mind the various aspects, whether it be the economic consideration, the social consideration, or the environmental consideration. By and large, we have seen that people tend to focus more on the economic consideration of any project at the cost of the other two, which I think is not only unfair, but it starts showing results, adverse results very quickly. As you can see, that in the last few years, how this has led to economic disparity, not only between nations, but also within nations. The climate parameters, what they used to be and where we are today. Virtually, we have got into a firefighting mode, saying that we must reduce emissions by 30% by 2030 and by 50% by 2050. The kind of climate one sees today, you see the kind of floods, you saw what happened at the almost at the fag end of September in Bombay yesterday. I mean, I have not seen this in the last 25, 30 years that I have been in Bombay. You had a very, very regular and average, predictable rainfall starting around 10th of June, ending by mid-August to end August, early maximum could go into maybe early September. But the whole thing has the complete, there is no predictability even as far as rains are concerned. you see the kind of lopsided development that takes place in a city like Bombay. The place where I stay, where there were just about 3 buildings with adequate car parking. I think in the last about 10 years, maybe 30 buildings have come up. And the streets get waterlogged at the start of the monsoon. I mean, there is I think just the commercial considerations are becoming the most paramount, which are leading to all these. And I think the saddest thing which has happened because of all these neglects, the arrival of this pandemic in January, and comparatively, you see the kind of poor health infrastructure. I mean, to get a bed in a hospital is something which you probably, if you need a good bed in a good hospital, probably you may have to go to the highest set of people and plead with them that, look, you need something where, otherwise you have a problem. So, this is what has become visible just in the last about 10-15 years. So I think one will need to just pull back and start looking at the equitable movement towards so-called developments, where I think commercial consideration in any development project has got to be just one of the considerations, and you will have to just relook, reflag. How are you going to look at the other side, which is the social consideration and the environmental consideration? In fact, when you go back to shipping, let's just pull back to January 2020. The shipping was already facing a number of challenges: subdued markets, heavy regulatory requirements, stringent emission norms, targets of 2030 and 2050 with baseline as 2008. While the industry was still struggling to meet these, we had the COVID-19 come in, which has again thrown everything out of gear. Now, basically, as I see that, let us for a moment just delay the discussion on the pandemic and how it is going to affect our years down the line. We were looking at how do we get to the climatic aspects and the target being set for 2030 and 2050. And I think they were, though I mean, it is believed that they are not easy, but I think if they are done systematically, things were looking as possible. Things like, I think first and foremost, I think in shipping we took the standard route. That means trying to operate the efficiencies, the operational efficiencies, which I think they were already in existence to some extent. But you see, you go back to maybe towards sustainable shipping, we'll have to be more efficient through cleaner hulls, trim optimizations, improved weather routings, just-in-time arrivals to save fuel and reduce emissions. I think this is something which most companies on their existing ships were doing or are doing for quite some time. This to be followed by the EEDI, which is mandatory and has already come into force for better hull designs, improved engine efficiencies, speed optimization, improving the design issues. I think here, when I look back of my time in the industry, I find that shipping industry has been a more of a very, very, I would say, very traditional industry, conservative industry. If I look and compare with the auto industry and the aviation industry, I think they made far greater advances in this area of trying to bring in, better efficiencies. I look back when I was a chief engineer at sea, and most of you are engineers here. I recall a specific fuel consumption of grams per bhp hour was a fantastic achievement. And I'm talking of maybe 1975, 76, 80. After that, with the uniflow scavenging came the BMW, rather B and W, where the efficiencies, the specific fuel consumption improved to about 125. I'm not sure whether how much it has gone below 125. I think with the SOx and NOx, probably it went up a little, but I think it has fairly stagnated at that level. So what I'm trying to say is that where are the engine builders trying to improve the fuel efficiencies? Maybe I'm not really in touch, but whatever I read, I think we are pretty much stagnant on fuel efficiency. Where are we on propulsive efficiencies? How much have we done in hull design? If you look at the hull design and propulsive efficiencies, I don't think we have made too much of an headway. We are still struggling with slightly better propellers. So we need to look into all these areas. And in fact, if you look at waste heat recoveries, all of us, I think, belong to an age where we already seen waste heat recovery through turbochargers on engines. We have seen waste heat recoveries on exhaust gas boilers. We have seen waste heat recoveries on freshwater generators. After that, have we had any kind of a radical investment in shipping or in marine engines where suddenly they say that we have extracted another 20% of the waste heat which goes through the funnel? So I think the marine engineers and naval architects will really need to look into making ships smarter, as we go down the line. And we have time. We are in 2020. I think we have 10 years for 2030. We have about another 30 years for 2050. So if we start, or I'm sure that some of them are already on the drawing boards, if we start looking at things and we say that we need to improve the ship's efficiencies, we will need to, because I think as we go down the line, we have been talking that I think meeting the 2030 targets and 2050 targets with respect to CO2 emissions, we are looking at two major areas, the desulfurization and the decarbonization. I think desulfurization probably is an easier goal to achieve than decarbonization, because I think at some point of time, one will get into an area where newer fuels, which are now being stated as the zero carbon or the net zero carbon fuels, which will be moving away from the fossil fuels, I think that will need to come in. Having talked about engines, hull profiles, propulsive efficiencies, I think if we look at the models, the actual improved efficiencies will only come through what we call the digitalization. I think digitalization is going to be the biggest game changer. And unless shipping goes in a big way towards digitalization, I think our dream of 2030 and 2050 would probably lie halfway. And I think that is an area where shipping industry will need to concentrate for making shipping much more efficient, much more smarter. I think this is where I think the data scientists, the data analytics will really need to come in. And I'm told that that area is finding a lot more interest, and that needs to be done. I think ultimately what we will require is smart ships, smart fleets, and at the end of the day, a smart solution to door-to-door logistics. I think that is what we will need to achieve to make shipping really sustainable in the true sense of the word. Now, I think as I say this, this what we are talking of, it's very coincidental that we are talking of 2020 and getting somewhere by 2050, 30 years. Now, if you go back in time, I think there was a industrial revolution between 1830 and 1890 in the 19th century, which was actually a big shift from sail to steam. And the ship owners, well, they knew that they had to move from sail to steam, but it took them quite some time. But ultimately, I think there was no choice. Unless you moved to steam, you really could not get into a new enhanced level of transportation. I think we are in a similar situation. Now, whether you like it or not, you will have to move with the industrial 4 technologies available. And today, the technology available is phenomenal. I mean, we only read about it. Unfortunately, we are not absolutely in touch, and especially, as to some of the more evolved countries are working on. But I think this Industrial Revolution 4 will need to come in place. And you see, so far we have been in the new scene. We have been trying to see that systems on a ship are separately doing. You are improving the engine efficiency. You are improving the auxiliary power. You are improving the navigational systems. You are improving the ballast water systems. All in a fairly segregated manner. But I think as you go toward the Industrial 4 technology, I think all these systems will need to talk to each other, where your main engine will adjust speed based on the kind of currents it is facing, where it will change the routing pattern depending upon the kind of adverse currents it is facing. It will change speed depending upon the time you are supposed to arrive at a discharge port or a load port. And I think all these will need to be integrated. And today it is possible through big data, through Internet of Things, through all these interconnectivities. So I think that's an area where we will finally be able to achieve the most cost-effective and the most environmentally effective scene, which is the requirement of the day. See, I mean, it may look more like a dreamer's kind of a thing, but let's not forget that we already have this in the auto industry. What I'm speaking about, we already have this in the aviation industry. If you see today, you get on a plane. I think from the time the plane takes off till the plane arrives, I think the human element only intervenes if required and when required. Otherwise, everything is on auto. You can see on your screen in front of your seat what are the arrival times, what kind of wind speed, what kind of tailwinds, and the pilot really has nothing to do with it. It is all being done by the computers. So I think we are getting into a scenario where the digital technology will need to be embraced very quickly. And the other thing what I see as we go down the line, I mean, the one will have to just shake off that traditional approach to shipping. It's taken us. I mean, we all worked on MAN engines, we all worked on BMW engines, we worked on Sulzer. But then, I think I left sea before the Artiflex came in. But I think, electronic control, electronic surveillance, predictive maintenance, I think this is what the future is going to be. And here, I think one thing one needs to also keep in mind that while all this will happen, but the pace at which the technology is moving, a seafarer will need to be trained. The masters, the chief engineers, the people down the line will need to be trained as to how to handle this technology. Because obviously at any point of time, the technology can be made only to serve you. The technology cannot become your master. And I think that is where the human element will need to be ahead of all this. And I think all the industry will need to make sure that the seafarer and the shipping fraternity is the training aspects are stepped up in a major way so that they are able to handle technology and they are able to command technology. I think this is this is probably going to be as important or more important as to embracing technology. The ship owners will need to be uh, absolutely prepared that the entire fleet will need to be relooked at. Today the effort has been, you got a Handymax, you make a Supramax, you go to a Panamax, you go to a, your the Valemax, whatever you may say. But I think that if you have to really keep the environment in mind, one will have to forget making bigger ships bigger. One will have to look at making smaller ships bigger to meet the trade requirements and to see that they comply with your environmental norms, they comply with the fuel efficiencies. Today, the best, the required thing is you will have to reduce fuel consumption, because as you reduce fuel consumption, your emissions come down. But if you just reduce speeds and bring down emissions, that is not the solution, because it will pull in more ships to do the trade, and ultimately, there will be a trade-off between number of ships and the emissions. So I think there is no other way but to make your smaller ships bigger and more efficient as far as consumptions are concerned, as far as efficiencies are concerned. I think, and that is where the industry, the shipping industry, and the ship owners will need to move. I'm not trying to sound an alarm bell and being termed as an alarmist. Today, if you see at some point of time, as I said, the desulfurization is probably an easier issue to tackle, and I think this 0.5% sulfur was a very welcome thing to come. There was a lot of fear expressed about what do we do. I think 0.5 sulfur is a very different kind of an animal. It will bring in a lot of problems. There were concerns being raised by ship owners, not so much by refiners, but also by the insurance, the P&I clubs, the hull underwriters. There would be damages. But I think by and large, it has gone off fairly smoothly. Of course, there are problems whenever you make any specification changes. But I think the 0.5% sulfur has done well. LNG, whatever you may feel, I think LNG is not the issue for decarbonization. It will have its own problems. So I think switching to biofuels, zero net carbon fuels will be required at some point of time before you get to 2050 to bring down the decarbonization levels. One aspect which really one will have to look at, that if you are going to move away from fossil fuels, what happens to your coal reserves, which are probably good enough for next 50 years? What happens to your fuel reserves, the crude reserves, which are good for next 40 years? And we are still not got into deep water explorations in a big way. I think these could leave a lot of stranded assets, both in terms of commodities as well as in terms of ships. I mean, the kind of surplus fleets that could emerge. So I think it is time that industry started looking at smarter ships, smarter fleets to move towards 2050. I think that's an area one really needs to look at in a more responsible way if we have to really meet these targets set by IMO, and I think it is very much feasible. Even before we get into the moving away from the biofuels, I think we should get quite comfortably, and I'm sure that the net zero carbon fuel would be there well in time to meet our final end. But as I said, that one has to take the environmental changes and the social changes very, very seriously. And I started with that there is enough on the planet for our needs, but not enough for the greed. The pandemic is going to be a major driver now onwards as to how the economy behaves and how the shipping behaves, because it all depends. I mean, I hope this gets over soon, but what will be the economic impact, how deep, how long, I think that will determine also how the environmental impact will take place, because I think if the impact is not too deep and not too long, probably trade will pick up faster at the average rate of growth, which has been about 3%. But if it is deeper and longer, and you get to a stage where the trade picks up only between 2% or less than 2%, less than 1%, I think probably the environmental effects could be more sanguine, where I think if nothing is done, you could have about 700 million tons of carbon by 2050. But if all these, the impact of pandemic, the trade grows at a slower rate, the ship owners try and re-engineer their fleets, then I believe some of the mathematical models say that your carbon could be less than 500 million tons, which is the expected target, and it could be even lower to about 250 to 300. And I think that would be probably good news. But I think pandemic is going to be a driver for quite some time. We talked about greed. We talked about things. It just reminds me of one of a very small quote from Khalil Gibran, where he said that in my wandering, I once saw on an island a man-headed iron-hoofed monster who ate of the earth and drank of the sea incessantly. And for a long while I watched him. Then I approached him and said, "Have you never enough? Is your hunger never satisfied and your thirst never quenched?" And he answered, saying, "Yes, I am satisfied. Nay, I am weary of eating and drinking, but I am afraid that tomorrow there will be no more earth to eat and no more sea to drink." With that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank all of you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your words, calling out the things the way they are. I hope they inspire all to achieve greater heights. I now have the honor to invite the chief guest, Captain Solwin, to kindly enlighten us on this wonderful occasion. Over to you, sir.
Requested to unmute. Yes, unmuted. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Audible, sir. Audible.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm proud and happy to get this opportunity to share my experience on this auspicious World Maritime Day. Thanks and appreciations goes to Dr. K. Simon, who gives me this opportunity to me. Part of the marine industry, we seafarers are to participate in enhancing the sustainability of the shipping and the planet. Each and every sector of the industry has to bear their responsibility to perform the duties. I am presently involving much in training of the seafarers, so I will discuss more on this training and education. IMO has realized the importance of the training and change to it. IMO has adopted the International Convention on the Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Seafarers in 1978, which famously known as S.T. Sreedharan, which was amended in 1995 and again in 2010. In 1995, amended was by introducing the STCW code. In 2010, the new technology, but you may say that forgotten technology is what is this? Is the non-technical skills. Non-technical skills are very important to us, and most of us, the seafarers, sailing seafarers, think science is an important technology in our industry and pay more attention for many years. But in 2010 amendments, IMO has changed to include the non-technical skills. That is management, leadership, and teamwork and communication to all the levels of the seafarers. The topics are covered in by developing maritime resources management courses. To explain further, we think when we calculate as a navigator, when we calculate for the position and where to go, but this is the only science. But this will be not enough until you manage to achieve the goal. Find the technical, but they are not good enough. So you have to manage it. I still remember the words when we started introducing the International Safety Management ISM code. We used to say that culture of compliance are our main. We comply what the rules and regulations said. But IMO intention in this ISM code is to go a little further by introducing not only the self-compliance, culture of compliance, but to change to culture of self-regulations. But now I think we have to move, or we have to jump over to another sector, that not only the self-regulation, but also the self-improvement. Because you can see these days, especially in this pandemic, COVID-19 situation, most of the crew facing many difficulties, such as crew change, stress management, become more important. We are very much lack in this area. So we need to introduce some psychology issues in the training, because I am the trainer, so that what it is my point of view. The training should go to the psychology, counseling, and stress management. That is my opinion. In conclusion, I wish all seafarers serving on board and waiting a show for their good health and prospective future. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking and inspiring words. I now invite a very young and dynamic master mariner from the fold of the Company of Master Mariners of India, Kochi chapter, Captain Roney Kurivila. Captain Kurivila has been sailing as a master on oil chemical tankers and parcel chemical tankers type 2. He took command in February 2010 and has sailed successfully in the oil chemical trade with almost all possible oil majors in almost all parts of the world where the tanker trade exists. Presently sailing with Synergy, he was on board from February to June 2020 when the COVID protocols were being adopted and implemented worldwide. A key active member of the fraternity and CMMI Kochi in particular, and I'm extremely happy to welcome Captain Roney to speak on MARPOL Annex 2 in relation to sustainable shipping. Over to you, Captain Roney.
Thank you, Captain Rajesh. Can you hear me? Can you
Loud
hear?
and clear, loud and clear.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. The topic, respected dignitaries, Simon, Dr. K.S. Simon, Engineer NMC Nair, Engineer Arun Sharma, and our distinguished guest, Captain Sao Lim, and all other participants. The topic is regarding sustainable planet via a sustainable shipping. So the shipping has to support for a sustainable planet. So what I heard recently was Bill Gates predicting the 2020 pandemic in 2050, and he's also done one more prediction, which is the climatic change, the problem, the effects the climatic change can happen to us by the year 2050, which he says it will be worse than the present pandemic. So, and yes, and as we know, as we hear people speak, we know that this is going to be a real big issue. So the topic, the same thing, the climatic issue, as we can see in Kerala, the recent floods, in the recent rains, we know parts of Kerala being, getting submerged underwater. The beach areas getting shrinked due to basically it is all coming from the global warming. So this is the situation which we are facing, and which we are going to really face by the year 2050, which is very much evident in Kochi actually. So starting from here, I would go to this topic which I have requested, that is Annex 2. Annex 2 is a core subject which I have been dealing from year 2004 and till 2020 I just signed off recently. The thing is, the Annex 2, which has evolved, initially we had categories A, B, C, D, and then it is now category X, Y, Z and all. I'm not going into the different categories. It is basically X, Y, Z and other substance. The basic Annex 2 cargoes is X, Y, Z, which is what the Annex 2 regulations applies to. And the thing which I want to put up is, there are practices, there are Annex 2 regulations when you pump out these discharges. So that, of course, that is part of MARPOL, and I don't want to go in details. There are a set of regulations just like Annex 1, which we have to comply. What I want to emphasize is the construction, design, and equipment of the ships. The ships are constructed, designed, and equipped, I mean the chemical tankers, to deal with this pollution issue. And the second part, as Engineer Mr. Arun Sharma pointed out, it was coinciding with my topic. Actually, what I want to discuss here, the technology part and the procedure part. The technology and the procedure part is like, actually, I copied this from VGP, the US Coast Guard vessel. If you go into the vessel general permit implemented by US Coast Guard, they talk about these two issues, the technology and the procedures. Technology is the ship is constructed, designed, and equipped. Now, the procedures is where I want to concentrate. That is how we attained it. We comply with the Annex 2 issues like 12 miles, 25 meters, underground, underwater, not exceeding their rate. And, these are the points which are part of Annex 2. And then 12 miles, 25 meters en route, greater than 7 knots. Okay, these are these conditions. But as a seafarer, how can you implement this beautifully? Using the construction, design, and equipment of your vessel you are going, or the technology available there. So how you can improve on this is the question. And so we as a seafarer have to think how to do it better, in a better efficient manner. So this is what we have to think. how we can do it more efficiently. What you can put as a seafarer is the procedures. How you can do the job, how the operation wing, how you can better this operation. This is the question. So what happens over a period is, this is of course affecting the pollution, and you're helping your planet sustain. Or like an example, I will give you an example, like, palm oil. We have got varieties of palm oils. Palm oil, during discharge, you have to heat it up. Like it is like 50 to 60, some grades 60 to 65. Other grades, you have to heat up to 65 to 70. So normally what happens is the commercial, they give you a temperature. They give you a temperature at which you have to discharge this. So they give you a range. For example, it's like 60 to 70. What I would, suggest is, don't stick it to the lower temperatures. You have to go to the maximum, like 69, 68, 69 degrees. What happens here is both, commercially also you end up giving a good discharge, a good return of your cargo. Secondly, you have less unpumpables on board your ship, so that later on, it doesn't cause that much of pollution, because anyway, invariably you have to go out and clean your tanks. So you have less cargo remaining on board. So when you have a range, 60 to 70 degrees, you should think about it. You as a seafarer, you just not keep like around 64, 65 and discharge it. Try to take it to the maximum 68 degrees and discharge it, so that you have a good return of the cargo. At the same time, you have less unpumpables on board. Basically, the phenomenon is the same. Basically, it is like, the higher the temperature, the more viscosity, the lesser the viscous, and better pumping rate. It's just simple logic. But the thing is, you as a seafarer have to implement this procedure very beautifully, so that your procedure you have to develop. Because I'm not talking about the technology, because technology is of course there, it's a big part. But when I stand here from my operational point of view, I would say the operation that we do on board should be in a good way, such that you get a good pumping and good results, such that you have less cargo on board, so that when you go out and you do the cleaning, you pollute the oceans lesser, and thereby you get a good sustainable planet. This is the whole idea what seafarers we have to do. And then and if you comply with commercially also, you get a better result. And then one of the most important thing which I was seeing recently was like biofuels. Actually, one of the members already said about biofuels. Biofuels, it has evolved from 2005-6 when it started, and till now 2020, it has evolved a lot. Like initially, biofuels were categorized under Annex 2 cargo. Most of them were category Annex 2 cargos. And we used to deal it Annex 2. Annex 2 cargo is basically, you don't have any meters reading it. You just pump it, complying with procedure requirements. You don't have any meters like OWS or ODME. It just goes out overboard, complying with your regulations. But what happened over the years is they suddenly, they realized it. And then, what happened is by 2016, now you have a biofuel compliant ODME. Now what happened is, the cargo which I treated as Annex 2 way back in before 2010, when I was chief mate, now it has come as a Annex 1 cargo. The term is like, if you have more than 75% of petroleum oil in it and the remaining vegetable oils, then such cargoes are now termed as Annex 1 cargoes. So now when you term it as Annex 1 cargoes, you need equipment. The ODME has to read it. So that is why post 2016, equipments, the ODMEs have come with biofuel compliant. And this is something new, which was not there. So that is how technology is advancing, and it is using the experience that yes, these cargoes need to go into more stringent regulations. That is why now we are terming these as Annex 1 cargoes. So this is one thing which I have seen and which I have experienced, the way the things are turning around in the globe. And then one more thing is the categorization of cargoes, Annex 2 cargoes. When you categorize Annex 2 cargoes, there are thousands of chemical cargoes being carried all around the world. So this is a big question, like every day you have a new chemical cargo coming up the market. Say they were not being transported and suddenly they want to transport it. And then, it's a MEPC committee in the IMO which deals with this. They put the rules for this. They adopt it and make it and categorize it as either X or Y or Z. So there is a procedure for this, which is again given in the MARPOL. And of course, there is something beyond my knowledge too, which they are doing in the MEPC for categorization of these cargoes. So when you categorize these cargoes, initially, they take a lot of conditions for categorization of these cargoes. But, then suddenly after some years, they say, no, we need to give it a more stringent regulation. So this is happening with chemicals. This is because it is, you cannot blame anybody because it's got thousands of cargoes. So it is, you suddenly you find out and, you start carrying this cargo and then you find out, oh no, this cargo has got much more hazards, much more environment hazards to the seas, to the legitimate use of the seas, that is the fishing community, the beaches, and the overall, So they suddenly realize and now then they categorize it and they upgrade it. So this happens, we cannot avoid it. So this is what is, we have to emphasize more on this to attain a sustainable planet. So, because again, initially when cargoes are, you put a new cargo into the market and you want to transport between two states, the two states come into a tripartite agreement and they can, they can be provisionally assessed and they can be traded before they get into the IBC code. Chapter 17 lists all the cargoes. So before it actually comes into the full swing of the IMO, it is, it is initially traded between two states by a tripartite agreement and everybody provisionally assessed. It is not completely assessed, provisionally assessed and you trade on it. So anyway, these things happen and then you understand the consequence and then you develop further. So this is one part is categorization of the cargo. And then I would, one thing more I would go into is the last topic is record books. These record books, you maintain it well and you put everything in it. Yes, that's correct. But what I think is, how can authorities use these record books, not just for fault finding, for auditing of the seas actually? How you can audit the seas? Like there is a particular trade going on between in the Arabian Sea, in the Bay of Bengal, or in the Atlantic Ocean. A particular trade is going on. Tons of such a particular cargo is being traded across. And then you get the records of cargoes that will be carried in that trade, and you know how much of oil is being pumped out through ODME, or in the case of Annex 2, how much of unpumped holes were being cleaned overboard. So you take a record of these and then you compare and see how this has affected the seas around. This is, that you can, states can do it, and then you start building on it, that particular trade in this particular region, how much of it has it cost to the seas. That you can get it from the record books. If you make a big collection of the records, and you analyze it, how it has affected the seas around it. Seas around, like for India, we have a big ocean and then we have to analyze it. So this is one thing which I feel that we should get involved, because this is what is finally sustaining the planet. It is an auditing of what we are doing. We are doing a lot of things. We have to audit it and see how it has affected the seas around it or in that particular trade area. This is one thing I want to put across. And yes, there is always as gentlemen have rightly put up, there is always a battle going on in between the pollution aspect, that is sustaining the planet, and the commercial part. So this is where we have to, this is the whole idea of this thing. We have to start thinking about it as seafarers, which I am part of a seafaring community, this fraternity. I would suggest is we should start thinking about this. we should start thinking about how this battle between commercial aspect and pollution, how much more we can, as seafarer, operational wise, how much we can better it. And this is what I would put up across. And thanks, Captain Rajesh, for allowing me to speak on this topic. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Captain Roney. Thank you for that enlightening speech. In the meanwhile, some really distinguished guests have again joined us. I'm very proud to welcome Captain Sudhir Subedar, a very senior Master Mariner and senior member of this Company of Master Mariners of India. He's also the president of the ICC Shipping Association, and he's an authority on maritime legislation. Thank you very much for taking time and joining with us, Captain Subedar, sir. Also, I would like to welcome Captain A.K. Azad, the incumbent PO MMD Kochi, for taking time out and joining us. Thank you very much for that, sir. I now request Sri Ajay Pillai to introduce our next speaker. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you, Captain Nambia. Before introducing Sandith, I just want to just say a few words. Basically, the theme today is sustainable shipping, and I also highly appreciate the sustainability of the group, Mariners Society. And to have a sustainability, we should have balance. We have a wonderful balance of highly experienced and dedicated seniors and highly energetic and a bunch of true great souls, so that we are able to sustain our contribution to the welfare of the society and perform each time on a better note. So that's with me, and just there are some more distinguished guests who joined us in between. There is Captain Heidi Varjusa. He's from the Kerala Maritime Board. He has already sent a note about the crew change at Vizhinjam. And Captain Kuriakos, again from Kerala Maritime Board, Captain Ashwini Pradap, he already communicated with me in person. He did log in, but later he had to attend a call from the minister regarding on his on his professional matter. So he is off to Beppu, IGK. And Mr. Service Dond, he's from Maritech, Goa. Mahesh Mendrath, he's IMEI Treasurer, Goa. Advocate Joy Tatil, the maritime lawyer from Cochin. Mr. Brito, GMC Paul, and yes, Arnas Pillai, Bexel, Chief Operations Officer, India. So now I have the honors to welcome Sandith Thandasherry. And before introducing him, I just would like to show a video. Okay, now I welcome Sandith to come up with a speech. He's a naval architect. He's a MBA grad. He's a entrepreneur, and he's from Kochi. Please, Sandith.
I'm just going to share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. When we talk of sustainability, it implies emission reduction and some way to reduce the fuel consumption. Now, there are two ways to achieve that. The first one is how, like Sri Arun Sharma mentioned, is to improve the efficiency of the energy cycle. The second way is to increase the contribution of energy from renewable. And that aspect is what I will focus today. But you must remember that both aspects are essential in every kind of application we try to do. Now, it is important to get a perspective on shipping as an emission and perspective. So like Dr. Simon mentioned, shipping is the biggest impact to every one of us. It carries more than 80% of cargo, yet it contributes less than 2.6% of global emissions. This is important when we consider the steps taken by shipping industry to reduce emission. Even this is a small percentage, but it still needs to reduce. When we talk of shipping overall, the seagoing contributes 87%, as you see from the right side, and 8% is inland and coastal, which is domestic, and 5% from fishing. Among the seagoing, more than 55% is by the container ship, bulk carriers, and oil tankers. So we must know which are the biggest area where we should focus. But every small steps count. Hence, we should try every activity. Now, when we talk of trying to do renewable energy, we must think of the overall energy requirement itself. There are three drivers: the speed of the vessel, the distance it will travel in a day, and third is the weight of the cargo with respect to the boat or the ship weight. Now, if you see the weight ratio, the passenger ferries would be less than 0.5, mostly 1/3 of weight is passengers. If you go to inland cargo vessel, it's closer to 2 or 3. If you go to large seagoing ships, it becomes between 5 and 10. So all these are important drivers to determine how much you can do in renewable contribution. The speed is the most sensitive of these because the speed and energy or power requirement is exponential. So when we talk of every application, it is usually a moderate speed. This is especially true in the boats I'm talking. Moderate speed, it can be pure solar electric. But when you go to beyond 8 knots, 10 knots, then it is almost always solar hybrid is the way forward. And this hybrid, I am referring to diesel genset as a model. But if you are looking at fuel cell, which also I will tell, then it is as good as a pure solar electric. So this is one aspect to consider. Most of my experience in renewable applications is inland. So that is what the main focus is. But I will tell also the seagoing ships what can be done. Now, typically inland and specifically inland ferry boats, the usual troublemakers are all the pollution, noise, vibration, and smell of fuel, etc. But also in public transport, the operating cost is a critical factor. I mean, so it is also essential to factor the economics when you start implementing a new technology. And only then it's sustainable, because subsidies can only let you go a very initial start, but you need to sustain itself by a pure business environment. Then it has to be sustainable by itself. Now, the way to do is, and the first two is what clearly, like what Mr. Arun Sharma mentioned of efficiency. So you have to reduce the fuel consumption, energy need, by making the boat lighter, making efficient design, which also he alluded to, before and or in together along with the solar electric system. And then you have to invariably make it much more safer by having redundancy, which surprisingly some of the projects being taken, especially Kochi Metro, is not bothered to take care of the redundancy of interconnection. Now this you already seen. So from an economics point of view, the OPEX itself, this is the difference between a diesel ferry and a solar ferry in operating in inland waters. So it's almost 40 times. So this enables about $30,000 or about 25 lakhs per year saving. and thereby you get a life cycle cost. Although there is a difference about 100,000 US, its paybacks in 3 years, and that is what Aditya has already done in its 3.5 years. Now it has already done the payback. Let's talk a bit about seagoing. As we go to, as the complexity in terms of either the speed or the distance or the weight increases, you have to look at either hybrid or slightly different application. Now, the Ro-Ro ferries already exist in Europe, and the first one in India will come in Kerala for sure. It's going to come in the next 2-3 years, and the government is going forward in that direction. Petrol boats, surprisingly, is a very high-speed application, but 99% go in slow speed mode. And that is another application where the parallel hybrids can work. Fishing boat, especially small fishing boat, can be done, and we're working with Shell Foundation to get some 10 boats out in the market soon. For the large ships, it is the wind that is a key. Now, it's primarily because in seagoing ships, the wind speed is much higher. And the solar, even if you cover the entire area of the ship, it can't contribute more than 1% of the energy need, especially propulsion, which is a significant contribution. Whereas wind, especially things which are low footprint, like the technology shown here, are suction sails, where the footprint is very low, but it can contribute up to 25-30% of the thrust, which is very significant. And then there is the fuel cell itself, hydrogen fuel cell, which is going to be the game changer when you're going to pure clean fuel. Although LNG is probably a transition, so there will be LNG vessels being built in many places. Already vessels are launched. It's a transition to finally hydrogen is what my view is, and especially since Toyota has gone into fuel cell and hydrogen, and we are testing our Toyota fuel cell in a project in France, and that is going to happen even in India as well. Once the ecosystem of the hydrogen energy supply is also taken care, that is a limiting factor. So this is an example of a boat in France. And now all this can happen only if the government also look at the shipping and green shipping as a policy, just like they do in the roads. Like the FAME 1 and FAME 2 came for all from electric bikes to bus, nothing on boats, nothing on electric ships. So this has to change, and that is where the policy push has to come from the industry to push for equality, not necessarily any special favors, equality. And then financing, always the assets are not primary collateral in boats for sure, to an extent in shipping also. You still need some other collateral. So that has to change. This is how auto picked up, and that has to change in the industry to pick up. Finance is a key to any industry adoption. And then if the government is serious on the MSME and all the large number of small shipyards to participate, they must also ensure that the skewed payment terms, that the boat builder itself is financing the boat for the bodies, especially central government bodies like Navy and all tenders are usually, like this is from Cochin Shipyard, Kochi Metro, all the terms are 100% financing by the supplier. So this is something that has to change. And then the GST, there is a variance between an electric car and a diesel petrol car. That is not there in the boats or ships. Both are at 5%. Either introduce some differences or introduce some speciality for electric boats to compensate for not polluting. And then the key technology driver is a cells. If it's electric boats, it is a cells. And till the time there is an lithium cells being manufactured in India, look at import duty exemption, like how they are given for the electric cars in the first 5 years. These are some of the things. And the way we are doing, our purpose is very clear. We want to transform the transportation on water the way Tesla has done on roads. That is what our purpose is. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandith. Now I would love to read out a note from Kerala Maritime Board, passed on to me by Captain Hari Vaidya. It's called Note on Sustainable Crew Change at Vizhinjam Port. Sustainable Model of Crew Change at Vizhinjam Port. Complying the SOP issued by the Director General of Shipping, the Kerala Maritime Board is carrying out control crew change at Vizhinjam. The first vessel, MV Everglobe, arrived at Vizhinjam Port on 15/7/2020, and there was in effect crew exchange of 27 seafarers. As on 24/9/2020, 37 vessels arrived at Vizhinjam Port for crew change. As there are no tugs in the port hired by the maritime enforcement were used, and ever since then, there has been steep increase. The main advantage of Vizhinjam port is the depth. At 4 nautical mile, the available depth is around 40 meter. The proximity of international shipping route is another advantage. Because of this, the diversion required to call Vizhinjam is negligible. The crew change is done in 2 to 6 hours, depending upon the weather and the daylight. Trivandrum International Airport, which is only at 14 kilometers from the port. There are around 7 registered shipping agents at Vizhinjam as of now, and the charge code is really negotiable. The port charge is only for the use of anchorage at the rate of 92 paise per GT per day, provided that the ship is calling for less than 48 hours. And from the Kerala Maritime Board, they expect cooperation from all departments, shipping companies, agents, so that the Vizhinjam port can become a crew change hub in Kerala state. Thank you. Now over to Captain Nambiar. Request to government.
Thank you, Ajay, and thank you, Mr. Sandith, for those inspirational words. Indeed, with the right mix of resolve and effort, anything is possible. Next, I'm honored to introduce Captain Sreedharan, Director, College of Ship Technology and President, the Mariners Club Thrissur. The Mariners Club Thrissur has been very, very active in the fraternity as well as in the society, their contributions, and are seriously a very, very proud achievement for all the fraternity members. He will be speaking on a subject that is very, very close to the hearts of all mariners and families, COVID-19 crew change crisis and its impact on seafarer and family. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Captain Rajesh. Respected President K. Simon, sir. Distinguished guests, dignitaries, and my dear friends. A very good evening to all of you, and greetings on the occasion of World Maritime Day. Sustainable shipping is the theme, and we as seafarers always, we say that for sustainable shipping, we look forward to happy seafarers. Let me come to my presentation. Timely crew changes for a sustainable shipping. Mariners Club Thrissur is a society with more than 300 members, and more than 90% of our members are active sailing. So this pandemic issue and the effect it has on the seafarers is very close to us. COVID-19 has created a lot of stress in the seafarers and their family. Many of our friends are stranded in the ships more than a year without relief. As an association of mariners, understanding the issues of a prolonged stay without relief, our members came forward and relieved their mates in the middle of the pandemic, taking large risks, traveling almost 48 hours by the road, and I don't know what all things they were doing. So we were, the dedication of the seafarers to see that the other fellows are properly relieved in time. We do understand that and we also understand the difficulties of prolonged stay on board. We encouraged, motivated, and empathized. The close communication with the WhatsApp and other thing is really helpful, so that we can be in touch with those who has totally lost at sea without proper relief. We do as Mariners Forum, we just keep discussing what really went wrong. Definitely, most of the shipping companies, we never thought about an emergency of this sort, and we never had an emergency, manual or an action plan. So I think that really took off for most of the shipping companies. Don't know what to do. Definitely, as our Secretary General, etc., says, the better coordination between the nations and the governmental agencies, and that is all what is going to be, going to improve this situation. Definitely, seafarers cannot remain at sea indefinitely. If this crew change crisis is not solved soon, ships will no longer be able to operate safely in person with these IMO regulations and guidelines, further worsening the economic impacts of the COVID-19. So these are all serious concerns, not only for seafarers' health and well-being, but also for the safety of the shipping. Prolonged stay, overly fatigued, mentally exhausted seafarers are being asked to continue operating the vessels, increasing the risk of shipping casualties. Many companies, I don't know, maybe yes, they have no other options but to request. But in some cases, even we saw that the companies were a little bit worried about the expenses, the extra expenses which is coming up on the crew changes at new locations or on unusual manner, etc. So the diversion of the ships and the cost of the agency fees extra were something some companies at least could have done better. We already have many accidents. Recently, Cashew and the diamonds and other things. Maybe, I don't know, we may be linked to the stress and anxiety related to the COVID-19, the prolonged stay at sea. How do we resolve this whole issues? This will require the whole of the government approach, several countries and several ministers coordinating together. All countries must designate seafarers as key workers providing an essential service and to implement the IMO approved protocols to allow for safe and secure crew changes. IMO has been doing a lot of work on this area. The IMO Secretary General insistence on the importance of removing other barriers to crew changes such as visa, travel restrictions, providing seafarers with immediate access to medical care, medical facilities on shore when needed. They are all very important steps, in this regard, if you are at least looking for improving the safety and sustainable shipping. The last 1 month, the IMO has been promoting. The organization has been promoting the sustainable shipping and a way of improving the crew change, etc. They have been trying a lot of things at the various top level, bilateral meetings, diplomatic levels, and the establishment of the Seafarers Crisis Action Team to directly help the stranded seafarers. United Nations also, Secretary General Antonio has urged all the countries to recognize the seafarers as key workers and provide the necessary travel assistance to ensure safe crew changes and the repatriations home safely. So as a seafaring community, very dear to our heart, the crew changes, timely crew changes. We wholeheartedly welcome the action taken by the IMO and the UN in this regard. Even though with this lot of effort, while significant progress has been made, many countries allowing for the crew changes, but still the rate of progress is not in keeping pace with the backlog of ships requiring crew changes. Some of the leading maritime nation itself, we were keeping a lagging behind in following this request from the IMO. Still, lakhs of seafarers are stranded in the ships waiting for relief. Many times, we have instances where relief has been announced, flight details has been given, but many times they could not do the crew changes on flimsy reasons. When one test was done, it was approved by one country, but the test was not approved by the another country. And many of these kind of things really increasing the stress on the seafarer. A sign off is a sign off. It is a mental blockade. We all know. So once everything is prepared and the people are packed up and ready to go, asking them to stay for even more than a day becomes very, very difficult. So we'll have to really congratulate the master and the other crews of the ships who is managing the situation on board in these difficult times. We can say that India has very well responded to this situation. We really should thank our DGS and the government of India for the various measures they have taken. Really, we should compliment them on this. Our special thanks also must go to the Cochin port, which had taken a lot of effort to these smooth crew changes. It has been an inspiration to all the ports, not only in India, across the world. So they have gone for that extra mile, come forward to see that the crew changes are happening to the best way. Many companies understand the importance of crew changes, and we know standard companies they have changed many of these operating procedures, and they were doing wide alterations and doing a lot of crew changes in new ports, etc. So that has been quite a good step that should be really complimented for these companies on that. Another important aspect is the COVID and this delays. What is happening? Lakhs of seafarers are waiting on the shore to join their ships, and many of them are delayed 2 or 3, even more, 4 months waiting for the ships. Really, disturbing their financial planning. So it's another major concern as we discuss our members. Most of them are going to miss the NRI days, and the income tax and associated issues is another concern for us. So a large number of seafarers, missing that deadline, will not be able to complete the NRI days. Let us, we be represent and hope the government of India will look into these issues very leniently, at least for this financial year, and give a sufficient leeway for the seafarers. Let us all hope this pandemic situation will be over at the soonest. And for a sustainable shipping, we always look forward for happy seafarers. I congratulate Captain Rajesh, other office bearers of Mariner Society, and the whole team who has been working behind this webinar, conducting this webinar. Congratulate all of them for so well conducting this webinar with very distinguished speakers and very well attendance. Thank you all, and once again greetings on the World Maritime Day to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your words ring true in the hearts of each one of us. It is now my proud privilege to welcome Captain K.K. Haridas, Managing Director, Vanson Shipping and Tourism, and past President, Merchant Navy Club, Kozhikode. Captain Haridas is a very dynamic person and wears many hats. He is the President-elect of the Calicut Management Association. He is also the convener, Shipping and Port Development, Malabar Chamber of Commerce. He is the Chairman, Ports and Shipping Committee, Calicut Chamber of Commerce. He is also the State Chairman of the Rotary International Committee for Health and Yoga, District 3202. He is also the State Joint Secretary, Confederation of Kerala Tourism Industry, Advisor for Waterways Tourism, Malabar Tourism Society. He is the Vice President of the Kerala Kite Flyers Club. He is a licensed pilot of Beppu Port under the Kerala Maritime Board, an advisory board member of the Kerala Literature Festival. We are very fortunate to have such a distinguished person amongst us. He will be giving us an introduction to our maritime history. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Captain Rajesh, for the fine introduction. Good evening and a happy Maritime Day wishes to everybody. I would like to give a brief introduction to the maritime history of Kerala. Captain Ashwini Pradap, Port Officer Calicut, was supposed to join with me for this program, but since he got an urgent call from the port ministers, he has asked me to convey his apology for this. Since it will take much time, I'm avoiding the slideshow. Kerala's extensive coastline and course of monsoon winds set the rhythm of sea trade during the medieval period. The non-maritime trade history of Kerala, starting in the second millennium BC, with Assyrians and Babylonians arriving for trading the world-famous Malabar spices. Traders and travelers of that days called Kerala as the Garden of Spices. Musiripatnam, near the present Kodungalur, was the primary port of India, which is the oldest port in Kerala. Musiris was also called the first emporium of India. Later, ships from China at the east to Greco-Roman traders from Europe came for trading here. There is a belief that the King Solomon had visited Kerala for the trade purpose. India's oldest mosque, church, synagogue, and some of the oldest temples are located within 5 kilometers of Musiris. This shows the harmony and good relationship people maintained during that period. From the 6th century BC to 3rd century CE, the South India was ruled by the Chera, Chola, and Pandya dynasties, known as Sangam period. During this period, Romans had a good trade relationship with India. The South Indian rulers also extended the shipping trade from China to African coast. Kollam was also an important post and trade center. A severe flood in Periyar River during the 12th century destroyed the Musirispatnam port. Just before that, the last Chera king, Cheraman Perumal, distributed his kingdom to 32 local rulers and left for pilgrimage to Mecca in Arabia. In the 13th century, Kozhikode under Samorians' rule developed as the most important port and trade center in Indian Ocean region. Arabs and Chinese were the main traders. In addition, there were traders from about 35 countries doing business in port of Calicut. The main reason for success of Calicut was the sincerity and security in trading and tax-free import and export system. The traders' ships were protected from the pirates' attack by the naval forces under Admiral Kunjali Marekar. Well-known international travelers like Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta called Calicut as the city of truth and city of spices. The main items of exports were spices, cotton clothes known as calico cloth in Europe, from where the calicut got its name, timber like teak, rosewood, and sandalwood, animals and birds like elephant, peacock, and parrots were also in good demand. Iron was one of the most important export items. The main goods of the import were gold, perfumed oils, camphor, china pots, and silk. Malabar was the main host importing and trading center of South India. Bepur was world famous wooden shipbuilding center with beautiful craftsmanship. Pandalaini Bay near Koilandi was an important place for monsoon layup and repair of all types of ships. There were 4 important sea routes connected with the Kerala coast. The first one is sea route coming from China known as Silk Route. The second one is the route coming from West Asia and Eastern African coast known as Spice Route. The third one on Indian coast sea route coming from Gujarat and Kathiawar area. And the fourth one, Indian East Coast route coming from Bengal, Andhra and Burma coast. A Greek sailor named Hippolus in 1st century BC discovered the use of monsoon winds to sail across the Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea to reach west coast of India. This method was used by traders from Persian Gulf, Phoenicia and Egypt from very olden days itself, and they called it as trade winds. Indian spices and clothes were in good demand in Europe, but this trade was dominated by Arabs from Oman and Yemen. They take the goods from Malabar coast to Basra in present Iraq. The Venetian traders at there purchases all these items and take to Europe and sell it with huge margin. This trade route got seized in 1453 CE when the Constantinople was captured by Ottoman army. The search for a new sea route is known as an age of discovery. This resulted in advances on maritime technology. Spain and Portugal were in charge of finding new sea route. Prince of Portugal at that time was known as Henry the Navigator. They developed a new type of ships called caravel. These ships were lightweight and fastest vessels of that time. In 1492, Christopher Columbus started his journey from Spain to westwards to find a new sea route to India and landed in America. Sea route from Europe to Cape of Good Hope through West African coast was discovered earlier by famous navigator Bartholomew Dias. Portugal King Manuel I appointed Vasco da Gama to discover a new sea route to India. He sailed from Lisbon on 8 July 1497 on board Sao Gabriel and ships Rafael and Mikhail with 170 crew members in company. He reached South of Africa coast on 25th December 1497 and from there to Mozambique and thereafter to Mombasa in Kenya. He sailed further north on East Africa coast and reached port of Malindi. The king of Malindi treated Gama well, and an Arab navigator and cartographer called Ibn Majid was provided to guide Gama for a sailing through Arabian Sea. He reached Malabar coast near Kapad on 20th of May 1498. This area being a rocky place, he was asked by the ruler Samudri to move further north and anchor at Pandalaini harbour, located north of Koilandi. The arrival of Gama marks the beginning of colonialization of India by the Europeans. A mistake in calculating the wind direction near South African coast on the way to India by the Portugal second team fleet captain Cabral resulted in reaching South America's east coast and discovering Brazil in 1500 CE. Thereafter, he came to Calicut, signed a treaty with Zamorin king and established the first European factory in India. But within 6 months, this was destroyed by the Arabs, and Captain Cabral got angry and asked Portugal ship to destroy by firing the guns. A major part of the Calicut port city got burned in this, and he moved with his fleet to Kochi port and established the Portuguese fort and trade center with the support of Kochi rulers. At later stage, Dutch and French traders came, but they were defeated by the British East India Company, and the entire sea coast of Kerala was under them till independence in 1947. The major development of Kochi port was done by the Britishers. If you talk more about Kerala history is very long. Since we are running short of time, I'm cutting short the talk. Thank you, Mariners Society, for giving me an opportunity to talk about and remind you all about the history of Kerala in maritime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for those wonderful words. They truly make us proud of our history and heritage. I am also very happy and proud to welcome Captain Suresh Divekar. He had just joined us in between. He's the MD of the Risk Control Rating Systems India, a very senior fraternity member, and I have had the privilege, proud privilege indeed, of being his student during my competency courses. Thank you very much, sir, for taking time out and joining us. Next, I see from the chat box that our very senior member here, Captain Sudhir Subedar, is going to, he wants to present few slides with the IWT, and such a senior person, it's really a privilege for this occasion. So, Captain Subedar, sir, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. May I begin by paying my regards to Mr. Arun Sharma, my colleagues, sailing colleagues, Mr. Simon and Mr. Nair. I just prompted, earlier today we had the Indian Maritime Foundation and the Marine Research Center, a webinar from 11 to 1, where I presented a few slides which were seen mostly by the naval establishments. Captain Kalra from L&T and Vice Admiral retired Verma. One wonders, with so much of expertise already available within the fraternity, why the government of India or the powers that be are not making things happen in the domestic shipping. I believe one of the root causes are the established colonial practices and old legislation. Plus the need to compete with road and rail for greater good of India's economy, both in terms of innovation, coastal community development, which has been lagging behind the mainland, dredging, which is a key requirement of IWT, cannot be or should not be seen just as a dredging purpose, but should be together with training and embankment, so that the same dredging doesn't happen again and again. A typical dredging would mean suction dredging in alluvial soil of the Ganges and the Brahmaputra. It's been taken more than 20 years for us to ensure economic quantity least available depth of 2.5 meters in Ganga, and crores of rupees have been spent on dredging contracts in the riverine societies. I think we need to begin to think of domestic shipping more simply than in the complicated ways that we are being forced to comply with now. This is an old myth that IWT is cheaper than road and rail But the first mile and last mile connectivity demonstrates that there is a huge difference between the two rates because of neglect of the sector for so many years. Kerala has been for the last 3 or 4 years trying the incentive scheme which Bharat Sarkar has not been able to implement, particularly for the use of augmenting the IWD fleet, which is negligible, and whatever is there is very old. The new ones require commitment from all of us to bring back maritime heritage, shipbuilding, ship repair to the forefront and ensure that we have a transportation policy which is fair and equal to both road, rail, and water. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for a short and very, very informative session. It's really made our day for a senior person like you to share his thoughts with us on a very, very contemporary and important issue. Thank you, sir. We have now come to the completion of all our distinguished speakers who have enthralled all of us gathered here with their words. I now request the Honorable Secretary of Mariners Society, Captain Dilip Anangadan, to kindly propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rajesh. It is a privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of Mariners Society Kochi, CMMI, IMEI, NI, and MOCC, and others attending this virtual meeting, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers for gracing this occasion, World Maritime Day, and sharing your thoughts, views, and opinions on today's theme, Sustainable Shipping for a Sustainable Planet. A big thank you to Mr. Arun Sharma, Executive Chairman, Indian Registrar of Shipping, for taking time off his busy schedule to grace the occasion and for giving us a vivid insight on today's theme. We are very grateful and thank Captain Soy Luing, former Chief Nautical Surveyor, Government of India, Myanmar, for his thoughts on the occasion of World Maritime Day, with special emphasis on today's theme. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to Captain Roney Kurivila, CMMI Kochi, a sailing master, Mr. Sandith, Thandasherry, CEO, Navalt, Captain Sreedharan, President Mariners Club Thrissur, and Captain KK Haridas, Past President, Merchant Navy Club Kochi, for their contributions and talk on this occasion of World Maritime Day, and extend our thanks to all of them. I would also like to thank Captain Abdul Kalam Azad, PO MMD Kochi, Captain Ashwini Pratap, Port Officer Kochi, and President, Merchant Navy Club Kochi, Captain Hari A. Warrior, Kerala State Maritime Board, Mr. Hazare, former CMD SCI, Mr. Chandramouli Srivastava, Senior Vice President SCI, Captain Philip Matthews, Past Master CMMI India, Captain Sunil Subedar, and various other guests for gracing this occasion. We would also like to thank All India Radio for broadcasting our event. We also thank Sailor Today for setting up the live streaming of this event. I would wish to express my deep gratitude to our President, Professor Dr. K. Simon, for providing the encouragement and direction in organizing this function and for arranging the main speakers. I would like very much to thank Mr. NMC Nair for his introduction of the IMO theme of the day, Sustainable Shipping for a Sustainable Planet, and for the slideshow. Finally, my vote of thanks would not be complete without thanking Captain Rajesh Nambiar, our MOC, for this occasion, Mr. Ajay Pillai for organizing the virtual meeting platform, Dr. Shanette Simon for the invocation prayer, and to all the executive committee members whose activity contributed to the planning and execution of this program and their valuable suggestions and inputs. Once again, I want to state that we are all most grateful to all the speakers on this virtual platform. We thank all the participants for being with us this afternoon. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you. Over to Rajesh.
Thank you very much, sir. This brings us to the close of our function, and I sincerely thank all our members and guests who have chosen to grace us with their time and thoughts. We wind up with the rendition of our national anthem. Since we have a virtual meeting and attendees are at their seated positions, we request you to respect the anthem appropriately in a seated attention. Ajay will be disabling all other microphones and cameras for the duration of the rendition.
गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना उज्ज्वल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you once again, and a happy Maritime Day, happy World Maritime Day to all. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.